Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Equine Essentials. I'm your host, Gray Parks, equine nutritionist for ProTrition Feeds, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about our 3 different lines of co-op branded horse feeds. We're talking about these 3 feeds and calling them good, better, best tonight. Many of you are probably familiar with 1 or 2 of these lines, but possibly not all 3, and what the differences might be in our offerings and the nutrition and why we have 3 different lines of horse feeds. So we're going to talk about our Cumberland Mills branded feeds, our co-op branded feeds, and our Pinnacle branded feeds. I have 3 products up here tonight to talk about with you to give you examples of what differences exist among these 3 different lines. I have our CM, or Cumberland Mills Sweet 12, a 12% protein, 3% fat textured horse feed. I have our most famous horse feed, the Yellow Bag, 11% sweet horse feed here, which is 11% protein, 2.5% fat. And then I have our Pinnacle Optimize, which is a 12% protein, 6% fat. All textured feeds, and all on paper might look to you as if they're very similar. So the question is, why do you have 3 different horse feeds and 3 different brands that are all in that 11 to 12% protein range? Well, there are differences in the ingredients that we use across these 3 lines. There are differences in the nutrient sources that we use across these lines. And then, of course, there are price point differences which are reflected by the ingredients and the nutrient sources that we're going to use in our various horse feed lines. In our Cumberland Mills line, we have tried to give you our most economical but still nutritionally sound product. Our Sweet 12 is our only true horse feed in the Cumberland Mills brand, but there is also a 10% sweet all stock. So if you have horses that are running with goats, with sheep, with cattle, then that's a feed that you can feed to multiple species that is safe for all of those species, meaning it's not medicated. We sequence it as though it were a horse feed, meaning we don't make it before or after a medicated feed, but it contains a lower level of copper, for example, to make it safe for sheep. So it's not designed for, high performance, high nutrient need horses, but it's designed to be safe for all species, or the dedicated 12% sweet that we're going to talk about tonight. In our co-op brands line, the Yellow Bag line, everyone knows the 11% sweet horse feed, but we do have 2 other products in that line. We have an Equine 12 course, which is a 12% protein textured feed with a higher grain content and a little higher fat content than the 11% horse. And then we also have an Equine 14 pellet. So if you're looking for something in this range of quality, nutrition, and price, then we do have a pelleted option as well. In our premium Pinnacle line, we have a full spectrum of offerings for horses of all life stages, all ages, and all nutrient demands, with our highest quality ingredients and highest quality nutrient sources. Looking across these 3 feeds, for example, one thing that you might notice if you dig into the ingredients on the tag is going to be differences in the mineral sources. In our Cumberland Mills brand, for example, you will notice that the mineral sources are all what we call inorganic. So you'll have copper sulfate, zinc sulfate, sodium selenite. These are all kind of the standard level of nutrient availability. They're what we use to kind of set requirements in animals. In our co-op brand, you'll see around 25% of those trace minerals like copper, zinc, and selenium coming from organic sources. Organic trace mineral sources are more bioavailable to the animal, more available especially when you have competing nutrients out there like other minerals in the soil, in the water, in the feed that might interfere. In our Pinnacle line, you'll see those organic trace minerals at 50 to 100% of your trace mineral inclusion rate. So you're going to get a higher quality mineral source package. As we look at these feeds, you'll also see ingredients in the fiber sources. In our Cumberland Mills brand, you'll see rice hulls, for example, being higher on the ingredient list than you do in the co-op brand. And then in the Pinnacle brand, you won't see rice hulls at all, but rather soy hulls and a lot of beet pulp. So more digestible fiber sources, more soluble fiber sources for a higher calorie content. You're also going to see higher fat in our Pinnacle line. Again, because it's a better availability of energy in those higher, more premium products. When we physically look at these feeds, you're going to see some differences as well. In the Cumberland Mills brand, for example, we only have about a 12.5% inclusion rate of grains or corn and oats in this textured product. In our Co-op brand, you'll see about 17 to 18% grain in that product, whereas in our Pinnacle lines, in this feed in particular, you see about a 60% inclusion rate of grain, and that grain is oats, not corn. So a much higher quality, more digestible, slightly lower starch grain source in the premium product versus our good and better products across these lines. These differences in nutrient sources you're also going to see when we look at the calorie content of these feeds. So both the Cumberland Mills Sweet 12 and the 11% Sweet Horse run about 1,000 calories per pound, whereas our Pinnacle Optimize here runs about 1,400 calories per pound. So 40% more calories per pound of feed in the premium feed, which means that if you are feeding all of these to the same horse, it would require substantially less of the premium feed to meet their calorie needs, as well as their mineral needs. So when you look at the feeding directions, you'll see that reflected. Our Cumberland Mills and our 11% Sweet Horse are designed for horses at maintenance, horses in light work, pleasure horses, and you'll see directions depending upon exactly what kind of horse you have to feed these products in the range of 7, 8, 9 pounds per day for the horse. The Optimize, on the other hand, is a performance horse feed. You can feed it to horses that are in light work. You can feed it to horses at maintenance. You can even feed this to yearlings, to broodmares in early pregnancy. And you're going to see feeding directions more like 4 or 5 pounds per horse per day. And that reflects the differences in mineral content in this product versus our other products, and also the calorie differences across those products. So matching what your horse needs to the product will help you start to sort out the differences and realize that good, better, and best are all available. But best being most expensive doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the most expensive feed to feed, depending on what kind of horse that you have. We here at the Co-op are happy to provide you a full spectrum of horse products, from a very good product for your average pleasure and maintenance horse to a better product with a slightly more specific nutrient profile, all the way up to our best premium Pinnacle line, which gives you everything you need and nothing you don't at a reasonable price point. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Equine Essentials. I look forward to seeing you again next time.